Okay, building a crawl space door. Materials you need. You need some 3/4 inch plywood. This actually becomes the door. The size of plywood you need depends on the size of the door you're going to need. So, good thing is it's 3/4 inch. Nice thick plywood. Some pressure treated 2x4, which becomes the frame that the door is going to be installed in. And then you want some 1 inch by 2 inch strip board. These are only like 89 cents. It's super cheap. And that's going to be inset on the frame that your door rests upon. Tools. If you're ripping out an old frame, you might need a pry bar to get that out. And then also, your frame is going to sit inside of your foundation. So, if the bottom of your foundation is not level, you need to chisel it. In this case, I have no bottom foundation, just some stones. So I'm going to have to improvise that. And then also I have these old wood members, which I'll be removing to create the new frame. So the other bit you'll need are just some gate latches. That's to hold the door in place. The remaining tools that you need yourself a skill saw, a drill, a driver is recommended, measuring tape. I got some chalk line, which helps me make sure my door is square, but like a square edge will work just as fine. You'll need some liquid nail and a speed square, which helps make sure your cuts are straight and helps you cut a lot faster and a lot more accurate. Screws, you'll need a Phillips head screw piece to put on your latches. And then I recommend using decking screws. You want 2 lengths. You want about a 2.5 to 3 inch, and then you also want about 1.5 inches to help put the frame together. You'll also need a drill bit to make the hole for which your latch is going to secure into, because you won't be using the second piece. You'll just be using the latch. So those are the parts. I'm going to go ahead and start my demo, and I will start it again once the demo's finished. Okay, this is kind of a worst scenario kind of door. Normally you'll have a foundation running across the bottom, and you'll pull out these sideboards, the old framing board, off of the side of the foundation. And then you'll chisel your foundation so that's nice and flat. In this scenario, the main framing board is attached to the well, so I can't replace this wood without ripping out the entire well, which is a lot more of a project than is needed. So what we're going to be doing is I custom trimmed some brick to kind of make a foundation. I'll be working to get this level, and then when I put in my first piece of pressure treated wood as the bottom of the frame, I'm going to make sure that it is a snug fit between these two boards. That way it will help keep the frame in place, and it will also help keep this makeshift foundation line in place. In the end, I'm going to have to dig and install some screening below the brick, just to keep anything from burrowing under, but that's another project for another day. The other thing I'm going to want to do is make sure the damaged areas down here get sealed up. So my next step is to cut pressure treated wood, and I want 4 sides. I want a frame going across the bottom, a frame board coming up the side, a frame board attached to the upper mud sill, okay, and then another frame board coming down the other side. And then you'll be using liquid nail on all of your wood to help keep it in place, along with screws as well to keep it in place. Yeah, and then you want to do the bottom piece first, and then the mud sill piece, and then you want to do your sides. That way you can cut your sides so they're tight, and that will help add additional support to your frame at the top of the mud sill and your frame down at the foundation line. So I'm going to go ahead and start cutting my frame and get that in place. Okay, so the frame is in. Alright, and I have another piece of pressure treated wood along the top of the mud sill behind this board. I had to dig in a screen underneath the brick to prevent burrowing, and it's going to take probably about a day or two for those bricks to kind of seal together with all the liquid nail and some patch concrete that I used. But this thing ain't going nowhere. So next I take my 1" by 2" board, and I'll be framing that at the back end of this frame so that my door has something to press up against, so that you get a good seal when you close your crawlspace door. So I'm going to go ahead and install that next. Alright, and then I had the inner board inset on the frame, and now I'm going to cut my plywood to fit just inside this board. So it's going to go inside the frame against the board. And usually you want to give a couple centimeters on every side to allow for expansion when it gets wet. When you go to drill this board, you need to pre-drill the holes, or else you'll split the board. Alright, now time to cut the door. Okay, so I cut my plywood, and as you can see, it sits inside the frame. Now I'm going to drill my latch holes. Okay, and when I do that, I put my Home Depot pencil down at the bottom, because I want this door off the bottom of the frame just a smidge. And when you cut the door and you set it into place, you want to make sure you want a little gap on the sides. Okay, that way when it expands, when it gets wet or cold, it has room to expand and still be functional. But you don't want enough of a gap that you can get your finger in there. If you can get your finger in there, a mouse or a rat can get in there and start chewing it away and compromising it. But you want to make sure it sits firm on all sides. And then to make your latch holes, simply take a pencil. Once this is in place firm, and take a pencil and mark around the latch onto the frame wood. And then drill out your holes, and you'll have functioning latches. Use the remainder 2x4, attach it to the center, becomes a handle, and just use your measuring tape to make sure the latches are level. You don't want them dead center in the board. You want them offset. That way you can make sure your door always gets put back on the proper way it was intended. But that is your new Crawlspace door.